Hi, I'm Chancellor Holden Thorpe, and I'm thrilled to welcome Cokie Roberts to UNC-Chapel Hill. Cokie, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You gave a great talk last night to a large audience, and you said that when you were answering this question, it was the question you get the most. Is this the most partisan time in the history of American politics?
No, it is not, and I'm happy to say it's not, because in our most partisan periods, people were actually shooting each other in the halls of Congress, or at least calling each other out of the halls to shoot each other. But they did bring guns in, actually, to the Capitol. The most partisan time was the period before the Civil War. But of course, that's not a time we want to emulate, because it ended in civil war and hundreds of thousands of loss of life of our own people. So it is worth keeping that in mind as we see how partisan this time is, because it is very, very, very partisan.
And we didn't have Facebook and Twitter in the Civil War
That's true.
or in the early days of the country. How has that changed?
24/7 media coverage.
Right.
Well, I think it's probably changed some things for the better and some for the worse. Looking back to that period of time, I suppose it could have been even more vituperative in terms of Twitters coming across and all of that. But it might have also had people connecting with each other in a way that they could understand each other better.
You've written about the early days of the founding of the country, and I want to get back to some other parts of it in a minute. But last night you were remarking, and this is something that is important to us, that this university was founded in 1789. What do you think that says about the history of North Carolina and the country based on everything that you know about how the country started?
Well, of course, 1789 was a tremendously important year. We think about it more in terms of the French Revolution than in terms of what was going on in the United States. But of course, it was the year of the government coming together for the first time. So George Washington's first inaugural, the Congress convening for the first time, and putting in place the government that was going to be our government still, which is in itself a remarkable thing to think about, that these farmers from the small group of states on the eastern seaboard were able to put in place a government that is by and large served us well as we've grown into this enormous, diverse country. But North Carolina, of course, was not that well developed, particularly off the coastline at that time. So to have a university starting here was a way of opening up the territory and bringing people in of a high caliber with an understanding that that would be the future, that the way that you would have a country that would hold together and be something that you could stand up to the European powers with was to educate its populace.
And we're very proud to think about exactly what you just said, that at the same time all these things were happening in the federal government, that people in North Carolina decided we should have a public university that was accessible to everybody, and that's an incredibly important thing.
It really is, because when you think about it, the big opening to the West really happened during the Civil War with the land-grant universities, and that wasn't until 1862. So you have a huge gap between the foresightfulness of the founders of the University of North Carolina and the rest of the country really understanding the importance of these institutions.
Yeah, agreed. So in you've written a lot about women in history, and most of our students are women.
Funny thing what happens, when you go to sex-blind admissions, who gets in?
Agreed. And now, thankfully, most of our deans and cabinet are women as well. So there's a lot of gains being made, but still a long way to go. What do you have to say to the young women watching this who are aspiring to a future in leadership?
Well, young women must be our leaders, because they are now the most educated people in our society, and not just in undergraduate, but graduate schools are about 2/3 women, most of them. And I'm delighted to hear that you're also true of your cabinet and deans. That's unusual to have that be the case, that they are women. But it is absolutely necessary to have the voices and the experiences of women in leadership positions, particularly since the people that they will be leading will be women.
That's right. And so how has that changed since the founding mothers that you wrote about in your book? And what kind of perspectives does that give us?
Well, of course, at the time of the founding of the country, women were not citizens, and married women could not own any property. In fact, you know, their earrings were the property of their husbands. They were the property of their husbands, and of course, they couldn't vote and all of that. So, it's been a long, hard struggle on the backs of some very brave women to get to this point. But having said that, it's still true that those women had tremendous influence, that they influenced their husbands mightily, and they filled in all kinds of ways that were tremendously important, which allowed their husbands to go off and do the things that they did to found the country, because the women stayed home and did the things the men normally did.
I know our students will be thrilled to hear you talking about that. So do you think that, what's the future for American politics? Will it become more collegial? The Senate is coming together with a bipartisan approach to immigration now. We don't know where that's going to go, but is this a hopeful sign that we're going to have a more cooperative government?
It's hopeful that there were 8 senators who were able to come together and come up with a basic outline of an immigration plan. We'll see where that goes from here. But the real impetus behind collegiality has to come from the voters. The voters have to basically say, look, guys, get it together. Stop acting like a bunch of babies and act like grown-ups and get something done for the country. I'm hearing more of that than I have in recent years. We'll see whether it plays out over the next few years.
Well, Erskine Bowles, as you know, was our beloved
Right.
president here, and so a lot of people in North Carolina are very proud of what he has done to try to promote bipartisan solutions to the debt problems. What do you see happening there with the fiscal cliff being postponed, and we're going to have some sort of sequestration? What do you think's the outlook there, and how will that play out?
I think that there will be more bipartisanship down the line on the question of the debt and deficit, and absolutely Erskine Bowles, working with Alan Simpson, has done tremendous work on this, and he continues to. And the two of them have been really leading voices in getting members of Congress and the administration to come together. They're not together yet. It will take coming right up against these various moments when across-the-board cuts are threatened to go into place, or yet another default is threatened, or the government runs out of money, and those 3 things are coming up in the next couple of months. And we'll see whether they decide to take it to the brink each time or whether they decide to get together on something. I actually think the Republicans did a smart thing of saying that the Senate Democrats needed to produce a budget for once. They haven't done that in 4 years, and it puts them on record of what they're willing to cut. Mm-hmm. And that's something that the Republicans are eager to see the Democrats do.
And so why do you think Simpson Bowles didn't go to the floor when they first finished the report?
Well, the president didn't really get behind it in a big way, and there were people on the commission itself who didn't support the work of the commission. But look, something like what they produced is not just math; it's politics, and there was a tremendous amount of elements in there that would be very, very controversial. And you can't just pass something like that in one big swoop. You need to debate those things.
Agreed. Well, Cokie, thanks so much for coming to Chapel Hill. It's been a thrill for us to have you here, and our students have enjoyed interacting with you so much. And thanks again for all you're doing for us.
Well, it's been wonderful to be on this beautiful campus, this historic campus, with such terrific students, and to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.